Hey everybody, welcome to episode 81 of Tactical Crouch. That's right, this is our 4th week recap show. Doozy of games, man, so much to digest and analyze. I really, I'm like looking forward to it, but I'm not, because I feel very conflicted and confused about a couple of these results this week, Joe.
Some of them, yeah. Some of them are a bit strange. Some, I think, less so. Where other people were like, "There's no way this team could win the game," and then they did. So we'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
One is Houston. The other probably Atlanta is the big question marks. But we'll see. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, Defiant, Houston,
yes,
Atlanta. I think are all teams that probably London too a little bit. But I don't think that's a surprise for us. I think we clocked London pretty well from the beginning, even when they were doing
all
well.
over the place.
We're going to talk about that though. Before we do though, housekeeping really quick. Show is supported by our patrons. Thank you so much to all of our supporters, especially our patron producers: Battle Crab, Made, Pin, Lotion, Charlie L, Audio Compass, Pork Chop Sammy, Kasha 67, and Coochie Kopi. Holy shit, that's a list. Thank you all.
Grows every day.
Thank you all so much for supporting the show. If you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. It's just a great way to help us be able to keep up with like podcast hosting costs. With like posting 2 episodes a week now, we have to get more podcast hosting space, and that's a little bit more expensive, and we make all of our own graphics and all that stuff. So if you want to support the show, it's a great way to do it, and you get access to cool perks like our game nights and our civil Crouchers chat. All that good stuff you can find right there. So please do that. Otherwise, follow us on Twitter at @tactical_crouch. We record Monday and Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time, and you can listen to us anywhere. That's it. Race the Mayhem. We're not going to have to race the Mayhem this week. Thank God. Nope. Eat all you want, kids. Make unhealthy decisions for a week, because just kidding. Don't do that. Still make healthy decisions. Beat the Mayhem. Crush the Mayhem.
That should be the goal here. Is, you know what, Mayhem might not be raceable at this point. Pick your own team, set your own pace, and race whatever team you want.
True.
Yeah. But we've got some cool merch there too. I finally ordered my shirt, the exact the blue one that's actually shown right there. It's kind of cool. It's like a heathered blue, so that's going to be coming in, I think, hopefully by next week. So. Gonna check that out. bit.ly/race the mayhem. Let's talk about last week's matches. And before we do, though, we're trying to nail the format on this. If we want to talk about our big takeaways before we talk about the individual matches, or after, we're gonna try it before, see how it goes. A lot to chew on this week, for sure. So, Joe, what were your biggest takeaways? Actually, Yiska, I'm asking Joe a ton for some reason. Yiska, what were your big takeaways from this week? A lot to chew on.
So, the one thing that was interesting to me was, of course, how the Rain performed, which players they fielded, especially. I think Baby Bay is still a bit of a head scratcher. Overall, like the game is still very volatile, and it's about to be much more volatile. I think their players have vast differences in their performance delta, which is why we see a lot of like unpredictable outcomes of those matches. Some get better, Some get considerably worse. Some have like one good game and then a terrible game right after. And a lot of them are sick, and that will continue to happen. And some of them play badly when they're sick, and some don't as much, at least. So certainly help me to recalibrate some of those parameters, but I think it's going to be even more of a coin flippy situation for a lot of those matches coming in the future, especially given the hero pools.
And for those asking about hero pools, we do know what they are. It's going to be Reinhardt is out, Widowmaker and McCree is out, and Moira is out. But we aren't going to be talking about that week. We're going to discuss it in our preview shows when we can actually preview the matches.
Yep.
But if you're like, hey, what are those? That's what they are. Joe, like, I don't know, man. Like Atlanta. So I think that there's a few big like surprises this past week. So I think Atlanta's performance was one.
Sure.
They looked exactly like we expect them to against the Defiant, or hoped they would, I would say. And then they fall to Paris Eternal 3-1. We have the Houston Outlaws, two very, very, very close matches, and finally got the win on one of them against none other than the Defiants, who got rolled by the rain the day before. You've got NYXL fielding Libero finally. That was really exciting.
It took you long enough.
Man, they look good too.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of exciting things this week. So, I mean, what were your biggest takeaways here besides that Libero? Just let Libero.
I think it kind of comes down to not properly having the sample size to judge these teams. Paris in particular, I think Defiant got a couple gimmies and people started to jump on them. So it depends. But that's kind of my big takeaway from this week, is that we're starting to calibrate a little bit more properly. We're starting to really see who's good and who's maybe a little bit overhyped, who needs to prove themselves a little bit more. To Yiska's point again, like, we're going to have to kind of soft reset with hero pools. And it feels like it's going to be a week by week thing, because not every team plays on these given hero pools, right? So it's going to be, okay, who's actually playing, and then ranking them within that weird vacuum almost. So that's weird. But going into, Overwatch, 2.75, this weird, fourth or fifth iteration of the game, I think we started to see people stratify a little bit more. I think we're starting to really, have to start penning the apology letters to the Eternal. I think Defiant are very stylistic. They don't want to play exactly what was meta. Now, again, that meta has changed at this point. But they didn't want to play that, and that opened them up to kind of lose against teams where they shouldn't really be losing to. That opens up teams that have been poor in the standard meta to play off meta things. And if that's the environment you want to play in, okay, we can brawl and we can fight with you, and that kind of almost evens out the playing field. I think that's probably what happened with the Outlaws. Granted, also go back and listen to last show. This is a different team. We finally got to see the Outlaws come out and actually show up to a game and see why everybody keeps saying that they're doing halfway decent in scrims, and they're a 20th team in scrims. So why aren't they performing on stage? We finally get to see them on stage, and I don't even know if I'd call that game against the Defiant close. I think that was very decisive. I think that was a convincing victory for the Outlaws. The London match, not so much. Well, not so much. I think, still rusty there.
Yeah, that was.
And I'm not completely all in with the Outlaws. Don't get me wrong, but I think you can hold on to your stonks a little bit longer and maybe ride them out.
In the right direction, right? We're gonna talk
100%.
about the Outlaws matches specifically in the future and what they changed and why those were impactful. So don't worry, we're gonna revisit it. But before we do, one last question to you both: which single team this week surprised you the most, Yiska?
That's a good question. It's probably the Defiant in a negative way.
Sure. Yeah. Good or bad, for sure.
Like, I felt like, and it's a weird feeling. It really doesn't feel as surprising in the context, but like, okay, so Defiant gets a win against Paris Eternal. We find out they aren't this bad, but also, of course, pre-Hanbin, whatnot. Then they're playing, was it Philly that they play close? And we consider Philly a good team. So
yep.
That feels like it's a good good result for them. But then, like, this week, it was pretty much a crumble, and it felt a little bit like, like speed running the last season in terms of performing pretty well and then performing not that well, right? So it surprised me how quickly that their luck turned around. And it's also not that amazing that it happens at this point in the season, but we'll see. It's hard to foretell if a team like this benefits from hero pools or doesn't. That's generally a concept I wanna explore. Like, for instance, people might say, okay, so there's a team that only plays off meta heroes. So for instance, like Houston, right? Like they seem to be at their best when they were playing Doomfist, right?
Yep.
So when McCree gets banned, some people might say, okay, so now the Outlaws is buffed because nobody can play McCree. Not necessarily so. I think once teams then start practicing that particular pick or put their or have a better idea on what to do against them, or like put their specialists in, and all these what's and ifs and buts, I think there's a potential that even if you're playing the meta you're best at, everyone else just does it better than you, and that pretty much feels like the Justice situation right now, right? Where it's like, okay, maybe Hero Pulse doesn't help the teams that play wacky off-meta stuff unless their wacky off-meta stuff remains playable while everyone else is playing a meta composition that still does well against it. That's a possibility. We'll have to see how that develops in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting because you brought up the Washington Justice, and I think Exy, who is probably one of the more exciting players this week, said that, like, I want to play Corey. Like, Corey is the best in the league at his position, and that's the person I want to play against or beat. So,
a man that hasn't scrimmed against Asian teams.
Fair enough.
What's up with the Koreans like gassing up all the Western players?
Yeah.
Who is it? Who was it like 2 weeks ago? It was a Hawksall that was like, man, the Washington Justice. Let me tell you about this team. I think they're gonna win the title, boys. Like, huh?
I mean, is that from? Yeah. So is that just from like what they've seen online? Or
I think it's just like bold-faced like mind games. I don't think they believe that.
It's like a pity mention.
Almost. It's like a joke.
Like, I'm not going to say
they are joking. I can tell you there are teams that are absolutely memeing on the ESPN poll in terms of like what the coaches vote for, and therefore some of the ratings are inflated. Like just show how many people have Justice on one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on. It's meme. Yeah. It's all memes.
No.
Fair enough. So, Joe, who is the most surprising for you, good or bad?
Good. It's Paris. This is a top 5 team. I'm gonna say it now. This is a team that has blown out expectations and will be disgusting. This team has blown my mind. Didn't think they could do it. Rush is in fact a wizard.
Until they can't play.
He's casted McCree a couple Hermione Granger spells on me, and now I am a Paris stan. This team's actually sick. Like, in all seriousness, this team's incredible.
Okay, like, the nuts thing to me isn't that players like Hanbin, like XCI, even though XCI probably performs better than I would have anticipated him doing.
Yeah,
like that his older players from Element Mystic, that they are performing well.
No, that doesn't.
I pretty much anticipated that. What is shocking is how great, or how really solid rather, the French pieces perform.
Yes,
and they're combined. That was the big question. Is like how do those two pieces, those two cores, combine together? So far, so good. This team at this current point, I can't predict 2 weeks in the future. Maybe they fall off a cliff with hero pools. But as it stands right now, if we stop it here, this team's a playoff caliber team. Like they've done
the Asian ones,
100%. Yeah,
that's the question.
With what we've seen, Paris is a absolutely sick team. And they're only going to, hypothetically, so far so good. They've integrated Hanbin well. They're working well with that. They're only going to get better. Halfway through, they get another drip feed. They get Sparkle back in the roster.
Yeah.
Now, if and again, it's a bit of a reach to say, okay, well, you did it with these guys. Maybe you can do it with this guy. I think there's room to stand on that argument and say, okay, now we're going to implement Sparkle into this roster. No more Nico, who, again, go back and watch that Doomfist game. They were winning 5v6. Let's just put that to bed. Paris was winning a match 5v6. Again, name me another team that can do that isn't like the Shock. Yeah. Titans, maybe. Like, this team's disgusting.
I mean, NYXL's done it a few times for sure. Like, but I get what you're saying, right? Like,
that they're in that caliber.
The comeback potential is super important, and you only see it on the highest caliber teams.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. All right, but I still
they're
think it's
crazy
a bold
good
thing. But you're right. If there is one team right now that I think is completely overperforming and has jumped tiers, in a good way, it's got to be Paris, right? There's nobody else. London are 3-2, and we kind of expect them to sit towards the bottom. But I think if anything, even their 3-2 win over the Outlaws just proved how messy and flawed that team is. Not that they don't have incredible high points. I mean, Glister is still, they've got some really great, but Jimmy Macaroons as
Jebediah McDougal's.
The thing is, he's still, like, to Outlaws' disadvantage, had his best game against the Outlaws.
Okay, I mean,
Outlaws made.
I think you could have a good game against the Outlaws last week.
And
Jackson McDonald.
We were memeing on it, but this kid actually has pretty good reflexes.
Oh, this kid's like, I loved the metaphor that you talked about. I don't know if you can remember it or you want to bring it up, but we've kind of coined the term of parrying, where you countercharge and you kind of meet in the middle. You happens with Brig, it happens with Doom, Ryan on Ryan. I don't know anybody who parries as much as J-Mac.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because he's charging, but he seems to do it very consistently on reaction. Even like with very like tight windows of reaction. Like he seems to just always be there parrying people.
Yeah.
Yes. Does he charge people off the map sometimes and trade and have their team lose or steal accolades away from his star DPS player? 100%. But, silver linings, I suppose.
Yeah. He's like the anti-Gamsu, where Gamsu is like, like basically, like has like a tied like reaction time. Just like 6 hours later, I reacted to this counter charge cross map. It's like, yeah. And then like very often, and it might also be prediction because some of them are pretty nuts.
Yeah.
It's like when you're very close, like it just happens so often that he counter charges, and not just the Rhines, but also breaks. Yeah, and that's very impressive.
Yeah. I think for me, the biggest surprise that you guys haven't already said was the Florida Mayhem. I think we've seen the Florida Mayhem. They came out shaky. They crushed Houston. We're like, okay, that's kind of what we kind of expected given Houston's initial performance, but still kind of surprising because we still had Houston, in like that 11 through 14 spot.
Yeah.
Get crushed by the Fusion, be like, oh, okay, like expected that to be a little bit closer. And then you flash forward to this week, they get totally decimated by the New York Excelsior. And then they lose to London, who we just talked about as being like this really flawed, underperforming team, a team that potentially has some great pieces, but hasn't figured out the right way to put them together yet. Hasn't got their individual players playing at a high enough level to be big contenders in the league. And it was just kind of surprising to me. I would not have guessed that the London Spitfire would be 1-3 with a 4-map deficit in their differential. And when you look at your wins, your 2 wins come against the London Spitfire map wins and the Houston Outlaws are your other 3 map wins. That's not a good look. That's really that's concerning. No Saya player. Even on those hit scan heavy maps.
Nope.
Maybe they need to take a page off of the Outlaws. And just, you know
Won't
what?
happen.
On the you think so? Just
There's juice there.
okay. Well,
yeah.
We will pause until you tell us. No, just kidding.
No. So the thing is, I was pretty papega in predicting these because I was totally unaware that the Brig nerf patch went live last week, and I wasn't evaluating the Mayhem under that filter. And it makes a lot of sense that they had a perceived performance drop because in Brig is only very few instances now a viable champion, like very niche and also very just like in counter positions. Otherwise, like it's not a thing you can play on every map like they used to with the Ana.
I agree. Yeah.
Sure.
And that certainly hurt them. And I'm just going to tell you, Chris on Lucio is not a good look, dude. Like when everyone's in everyone in their mom has a European like nutcase main support, like Masa, like Funny Astro, like FD God, you know, like these guys will just take your heads off like assassin and then Chris is just there like basically like just babysitting someone and booping everyone.
He's kooky last year. Say it. Just say it. He's kooky last year. He was standing still, doing nothing, not riding on walls, not booping people. He stands there and he dies. That's what he does. Yeah,
that's what he does. I think he's an okay systems player, but that doesn't work anymore for
not in this league
this year. Main support mechanics have been pretty stacked, especially with rookies coming in. We haven't even seen Lee J gone. Is there anyone else from China that one should name in terms of main supports that are coming in?
Not really. There will people who tell and claim you otherwise. Real talk. No.
Sit down, Kenobi. Sit the hell down.
Yep. Coma. That's actually a good one.
I mean, is he
not
even
bad.
in the league?
I don't know. To be honest, I can't even remember his role half the time.
Yeah. But yeah, like Mandu is another one. I'm not sure if we're going to see him play ahead of Anamo, but yeah, like these kids are cracked, and then you have Chris. It's just
bottom.
It's not going to happen.
Last.
Jaxe as well is another name.
Like,
yeah.
The former star of Houston. You can't really call him that anymore, but
they're just assassins, and you need an assassin now. There's just someone that gets a pick randomly and.
Well, I don't think you need an assassin. You need somebody who can make those picks, who's able to make those plays. I don't think you need somebody to just like go ham and just pound, but you need somebody who can play those different styles, who can play those modes, who can shift and change gears and say, okay, now I can be aggressive. Chris can't do that. Just period. Not going to happen. But I will say that it's not just him. This team is underperforming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think overall
he's attributing to that a great deal, 100%. But why isn't Saya player in? Why are we playing Fate and Cryon? I thought Fate was supposed to be the Winston. That's kind of the rate I got. Now we're playing Cryon on maps that facilitated it anyways. Like,
I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed that you haven't seen the pattern yet. I'm embarrassed for you, and I want you to stew in your embarrassment for a moment. We need to mention this change 3 times on the podcast before they make the change. So this was week 2 of them not playing Saya player. So the next time they don't play Saya player, we'll bring it up again, and then it'll be good. That's it.
Yeah. Nah. Probably not. It probably won't happen.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Not after what you've been saying. I always trust the Yiska juice.
I'm okay. So I'm hinting in a way where it's like, oh, did he punch someone in the face, dude? No, that's not what's happening. But from what I've heard, there are reasons to believe that BQB is just a set starter, and it's going to remain as such.
Fair enough.
I think that takes away from a lot of people's arguments of me like a month ago, or however long Power Rankings was. Oh, but Saya player. Well, Saya player's gone. Now you have BQB. You like BQB? Oh, to be fair, he did kind of perform halfway decent over
I think he's
expectations,
fine, but
compare
I think
him
he's, like,
to some of the all-stars.
Yeah, he's just there's problems with, and I think like, and I don't know if I can even say this, but I feel like it's kind of like the blasé kind of thing on McCree and stuff like it's like it's not his main role. You don't look at it and go, well, there's the thing like. Things blase is why Houston's losing when he's on McCree. Like I don't think that's the case, and I think BQB is playing better than Blase overall at that position.
Sure. Also got a lot of resources. To be fair, Chris was a bodyguard.
Yeah, but I mean, look at the top performers. You know, the Philadelphia Fusion, Carpe, right? You've got NYXL who are running Nene. You've got Paris Eternal who are running. XZ, you've got London
you got KSP, Glister. Yep. Like, there's a lot of talented DPS out there.
That whatever it's called, that carry DPS role, is so important. And teams like Florida, Sans Saya player, and Houston Outlaws don't really have that in Blase and BQB. We're going to talk about where Linkser falls in on that, but he definitely wasn't to carry in the right ways, if that makes sense. He played great. He turned around fights.
Like half and half.
Yeah. So
not full, but like
there's just a level of consistency and a level of like, I just don't know if they were prepared to play around Linkser in that way because they haven't had like, I don't know.
Possibly, maybe.
With that, though, we're going to discuss the matches. Let's go to New York. NYXL 3, Florida Mayhem 0. Final result, not surprising.
No.
But the map score, I would say, pretty surprising. This is something that I think specifically Joe had said, like, this should have been closer. This could be a banger. And it was not. Now, we did see some things from New York that we didn't expect to see. We saw Nene Libero in all 3 maps against the Mayhem.
Yep.
So does Libero or what? Like
he's been clapping his entire career. I'm glad everybody's finally getting to the party. You're about 2 years late. This kid should have been starting since the beginning. Who are you's completely washed. I don't know why you signed him. I don't know how Glister goes to London of all teams. And who are you, the washed up Genji one trick that he was, is now on NY. Like, what? Where's this kid been? Libero should have been playing. Period. Saya player, I don't know. Or not Saya player, I'm sorry. Say BLB, I don't know. We can discuss him later.
He's the heart of New York, man. You gotta let him play some maps.
I mean, I'm there with you because again, like preseason, that was a debate topic. Like, oh, does he see playtime? Is he going to come in? And I'm like, yeah, he's going to see. He is that vocal leader. He's that emotional leader to come in and be the arm of the coaches.
Yeah.
But is the hard carry kind of McCree that you need to be able to make plays and go and take those flanks? Is that really where you want him?
Yeah.
When you have Nene?
Yeah.
How did you feel about Libero's performance? Yiska?
I think it's definitely like we. The thing is, it's so clear that it's an upgrade that I feel like coaches have the problem right now in terms of like motivating players on their roster. And it felt like, for instance, like for Shock, like last season, they sort of like didn't go like, okay, or they seem to have like split up the responsibilities that every hit scan, for instance, this hit scan plays this, blah, 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 blah. These are the heroes that this guy plays. And when this is meta, he plays. And if this is meta, he plays. Hard distinctions. And everyone's like happy with, or cannot really moan when the dice roll doesn't hit them, right? Now it's like, well, can really every team really do this? Because even if you divide the hero pool up and say, okay, so who are you definitely plays on Genji? I have no issue with that, by the way. And then like, okay, so he needs another hero. What is he good at as well? Let's put him on Mei. And Libero is just like, okay, I can then practice like the other projectile heroes required of me. I can play like Farah. I can play like
historically always been a good Hanzo. Put him on
Hanzo, yeah, exactly. Like these heroes, and we're dividing it. Nope, that doesn't work with everyone because there's literally players that are better than your specialist at the other hero. And it's okay to have asymmetric hero pools in terms of like, this guy covers 5 and this guy's a 1-trick. That's fine. I think they were trying to integrate Who Are You early into it. And maybe they had some other intangible things. We can only speculate on these things. But in terms of like what I'm seeing on the server, it's not even a question who the better May is.
As far as performance on the big stage, yes, I mean, I totally agree. And I think that kind of brings a follow-up is how much of Who Are You's performance then? Because it looked very cut and dry. Do you think that Who Are You maybe does look better in scrims and it is performing better while here and he just hasn't translated that onto the Overwatch League stage? Or do you just think that it's almost kind of this hopeful thing of like, he's younger, he's new, he can't, like, we think that this guy is the future of this role on the team, and so we're going to invest in him and give him the time, even if it means we drop some maps, and in this case, series.
It's difficult to exactly pinpoint where their head's at. I do sympathize with a lot of what Yiska is talking about with trying to integrate him now. It's early on in the season. It might not be his best hero, but that's why we pair him with Sayobi, because he can kind of parrot what the coaches have been saying and try to lead the team to victory rather than just brute force with mechanics. I just think that, like, if that's the case, okay, that's fine. Like, it's acceptable, like, understandable. Obviously, there's, it's none of my business. It's not something that you should go around just kind of talking about, but it would be interesting to know if that's necessarily the case. It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like a counter performance to scrims where it's just like he's not replicating on stage. It doesn't feel like the character that is going to ask or demand you to do that, or just if it's really the pressure that's getting to him, like that opens up a whole nother can of worms. I just don't think he's very good at the hero. He seems more of a mechanic, like hyper carry style player who wants to be taking shots, who wants to be going on flanks, who wants to be trying to take over the game. That's why you put him in on dive maps, the horizons, the temples, allow him to play the dive heroes. And I think you'll see a different style of New York. So I've only got to assume that it's trying to integrate him early.
Yeah, I think like it's still a decision by IMT that could be a net benefit seen over the entire season. Maybe it's something about player mentality, keeping everyone involved. It's also it kind of overlaps with SBB being in and just like trying to form a cohesive unit where everyone feels like they're part of it. And it's the only thing that, like, if that's the reason, I caution towards players finding out themselves that they aren't bringing value to their team. Where it's like, if SBB and Who Are You sit in a VOD review and just look at Nene and Libero and they are honest to themselves, that might actually hurt their like self-confidence in that regard, right? So that might be something that people have to consider in these, if those are indeed long-term decisions. It's also very possible that there were circumstances with the Libero where it's like, okay, so maybe he had something going on private and good on organizations, well-led organizations wouldn't let that come out or whatever. There's always buts and ifs. We're all complex human beings. Many reasons to go about these ways, but like judging just like from on-server performance, it's clear, and then we have to look at the short term against the long term. Could still be a good decision. Unsure if it is, and we will see in the long term.
So what about on the flip side? So the Florida Mayhem had a libero problem. Not really, but like in the sense that they had a player on the bench who we were very surprised. Well, they've had two, right? Saya player has been on the bench, though not completely like this week. And Fate, who is another one who has, I think, trashed some fantasy teams. We saw him briefly on map 1 on Ilios against NY Excel. We saw how did you feel that he performed, Joe?
Fine.
Better than
again,
Karayan in that situation?
It's tough to tell. It's very like main tanks in general, unless you're just like very egregiously making silly decisions. It's tough to tell what you're supposed to do or what the team wants you to do and how successful it is. So if the team's underperforming and isn't hitting their shots, not giving the resources in the proper time, like you're going to just like that's going to chain up into you looking bad. Not to say that Fate looked bad, but if the team's underperforming, it's hard for a main tank to really stand out. So if you remove the nameplates, I wouldn't have been able to tell the difference. I'd have to like really fine tooth comb and figure out like, okay, what is Fate doing? What is Fate? It didn't seem like it was an improvement. It didn't seem like a disimprovement. Just
saw the monkey.
Neither one of them feel like they're really stylistic. They're just kind of there. They exist. They do their job. Period. It is weird to see Fate kind of like mixing time with Karayan. I like Karayan, don't get me wrong.
It's played fine, yeah.
But that's Fate. Supposed to be good player. Not even seeing playtime. Problem for me.
Yeah. Dude, like I was talking about this when we were watching. I think, like, and I'll just reiterate this rule here. If you have a veteran player that is serviceable in this season, at least get a second player on that role.
Yep.
The next, like, there are so few instances where a serviceable, like a guy you call serviceable, that is average, right, remains average the next season. The talent level goes up, they decay or are misadapted to the current state of the game, right? Like when the game keeps changing, like here's the rationale I have, right? There are 220 players in the Overwatch League, and we can say they are supremely talented over the general player base. I give you that. Therefore, they are more adaptable, and like the bad ones are separated anyway. Everyone agrees that they should be not in Overwatch League after the season. Okay, fine. So then, like, you have the mid-tier, and these, let's say, how many players would that be? Probably like 100 players in the Overwatch League, right? Just like if they had a long career, they have been selected based on what Overwatch was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, right? Now you have this bunch of players, and I would say like maybe 5,000 to 10,000 players trying to make it pro in Overwatch, and they are selected through the new systems that we post to them. And we also hope that these systems are good at selecting Overwatch League talent. But keep in mind, how many Contenders players actually have missed this season? Where you say top Contenders talent that looked like marvelous in Contenders, who has missed so far? I can't think of a single name where like we're like, okay, this guy's a top 5 Contenders in Contenders. Yeah. Like you could argue, Hawk is the worst one so far, right? That's the only one where everyone said, okay, he's pretty nutty, and then now that one performance or whatever, right? Okay, but again, these people are going to like the K of their relative skill level is exceptional. Because this game keeps it K. Now, think of like what would happen if we go to 1-3-2 or whatever, right? Like, game changes completely. Doesn't necessarily mean that all our DPS players are still the best for like that type of system, because maybe there are skill sets between 3 DPS players that are different than in 2 DPS players or whatever. The game keeps changing. Some people can't adapt. You have the masses is simply natural selection and the law of large numbers that these people are better adapted to whatever we're throwing at them. And like serviceable in season 3 is the garbage of season 4. It's just going to happen.
And there are another class of young rookie players that are turning 18 that will come into 2021, just like Glister came in this season. Just like Hoxall and a lot of the rookies of last season came in and surprised. Oh, I didn't think this player could do that.
Yeah,
sure. There's more of those people. They're waiting.
Yeah,
it's only going to continue churning. We're not anywhere near like we haven't found the solution. We haven't found like the perfect roster. And to see people, either get extended into like multiple year contracts or sign multiple year contracts. It really just blows my mind. Like, in what world? And again, we're picking on the Mayhem. Why is Chris here? You couldn't have found anybody, literally anybody. Rain, you had Rain. Did they not have Rain?
Yeah.
Apparently
Where'd he
not,
go?
right?
I
Apparently
wonder. And so we had on the show. We had Albert on the show, and we asked him, and there was a discussion about signing Runaway, and they said that they got 2 of the 3 players that they wanted.
Yeah.
Who? And this is gonna explain.
BJ Gunn.
Do you think that might have been who they were after?
Yeah. Probably. Yeah.
Like to me that makes a ton of sense. Albert, I think, was very kind to Chris on the show and saying like he's still a really good player. I think people underestimate him.
You kind of have to say that. No offense to
yeah, like if you're a head coach, be like, well, they're not the player we wanted, and they're not very good. Like,
I take more offense to that than re-signing Chris, right? Like, come on. Where's the understudy?
Like,
where's the substitution?
Say that to your players, but there's a lack of depth there for sure.
100%
at the moment.
And again, where's Florida? Granted, we're only 4 matches in. I'm taking the piss a little bit. Where did I put Florida? Where are they right now? Just saying.
Okay.
You think Hero Pools is going to help them?
No,
maybe Bum God. Maybe we get a little bit of Bum God Sombra. Maybe, but past that point, this seems trash.
All we're saying is Chris is going to play for the Lucky Future Zenith next year.
Yeah, where's Vito? Where's Nuss? Like, they might as well just export him. Like, it's rough, right? Like, and again, like, there are plenty of teams. What's Spree doing? What's Spree up to? He's flexing on the crowd. That's all he's there for. There's plenty of players that just like are existent. They don't do anything. They just kind of take up a roster slot. They take up a salary. Why? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not like they could feasibly maybe Meko gets sick. Maybe you have to play Spree. I get that. Isn't there somebody who's better?
There's a lot of, and obviously we can't spreadsheet this out, so we're
100%.
speaking in generalized arguments here. But there's definitely an argument of like known quantity players and the ease of being able to put them into an Overwatch League contract. That's definitely a thing. There's also the, teams tend to snipe in their backup roles. They tend to snipe certain heroes. Spree, I think, is an example of that, right?
At least in my mind, he wants to be the specialist, right?
Yeah.
Like, you want him to play the Zarya. If there's a Zarya meta, Spree can facilitate that. He's probably not super expensive. Probably does see some scrim time again. Generalization, it's an example from Houston. Not a knock necessarily to Houston. I'm sure they actually have a facilitated
your home stands to do some meet and greets and signings. Basically the chips treatment without the stream following. I get it. So like
100%.
I don't like the example of Spree because you can make the argument that they are there for a different purpose.
100%.
That they've
there's depth, there's specialty, like there's ways around
Chris
that. The problem is that we don't use them.
Been in the league for a long time, and at no point have we ever, I feel like, gone and said, be like, yeah, I get it, I see it, and it sucks to have to say that about somebody because they no doubt have worked their asses off, and they've no doubt
100%.
like imagine. Getting to the top tier of whatever it is you want to do in your life, and then having people on a lazy Monday morning podcast be like, they shouldn't be here. That sucks, and I hate the fact that we're saying that.
It's kind of like the rule of true, right? There always have to be 2 Mendos. Spree and Bullock.
I mean, again, like it's not just Outlaws. Look at some of the Chinese teams. They've got a bunch of just random players. Like, do you think you really think like Uyu's gonna play over Shu? No, never. He has to be ill, or something drastically has to happen. Like he chops off his own finger, can't mouse click anymore. Now Uyu has to play.
Yeah,
like there are just like vast understudies that probably won't see play, but it does. Like there are obviously reasons for it. I just want to see those reasons actually facilitated at some point, because after that, and hero pools are probably the best way for that to happen, right? I brag on it all you want. My opinion obviously is known. If we don't start seeing these people, why are they here? It can't be that specialized because you're never, again, that's why it's Spree as an example, because he's been on the roster for a couple of years now. We just really haven't
and
seen.
There's also, and to be fair, there's so many intangibles that like players, like Spree is totally somebody who's going to be signed by another team next year as a player coach, and it's gonna, like, that's what's gonna happen. And he brought some intangibility there and some insight there that's like, hey, rather than signing Spree to a coaching contract, let's sign him to a player contract and have him do a bunch of our off-tank coaching or specialist coaching or whatever that ends up being. We don't have access to that information.
No.
But I do agree with you on players rotting on the bench. Like, yes, what is the purpose of that? We have to move on to the next match, though. We have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
We did. That was NYXL versus Florida, for anybody who forgot, because we discussed it for so long. The Atlanta Reign make their Season 3 debut and had one of the most dominant performances in 2020, holding Toronto to just 1 point capture through 3 maps. Other results aside, Joe, you have to say this is exactly what we expected to see from Reign, maybe even slightly above what we expected to see for Reign, especially because they played the big double B, Baby Bay, coming in, who I don't think that we expected to see.
No.
I mean, honestly, I would be the first one to say, like, if you're like, John Baby Bay is going to play, I'm like, is Reaper meta? Because that's the only thing that I think that.
And it's all for the wrong reasons that you think that. It's all because he just ran it down.
I agree.
And he fed a little bit on Zarya, but it is what it is.
I agree. So, but, you know, like, that's it. I haven't watched enough of Edison to be like, oh yeah, well, these two differences. So we saw Baby Bay here. What made was, so actually maybe back up a little bit. Was this Atlanta Reign looking good? Or was
this is Atlanta Reign looking prepared. I think, yeah, Defiant's very, like, established. They've carved out their niche as like, okay, we're gonna play weird things. We're gonna try and catch you off guard. They've laid out their cards. We know exactly what the Defiant want to do. Atlanta takes that and they've kind of crafted a style to specifically beat them. You go back and look at Nepal. They're playing Torb. You think any team in their right mind just goes and, you know what the answer is? Oh, it's Torb. No. You know, I don't know how valid or how true Baby Bay's interview was when he talked about, you know, scrimming it and, you know, just memeing on it and found out that it was good, or if they actually, like, thought it had some merit, because they did run this before. This is a team that historically has played a good amount of Torb. They were very prepared for this team. They were prepared for all of the strategies that Defiant wanted to throw at them, and they were easily dispatched. So I don't know that it was Atlanta playing well. They played well enough to beat the Defiant, but I don't know if that was preparation or if that was actually, like, kind of playing on the fly, being able to adapt, or they just had the game plan. They knew exactly what they were going to do and just beat them at it.
Yeah. I mean,
especially when you look at the next game.
I feel like they hit it well in scrims. The only way you could have known is by the academy team playing that repeatedly. I feel like Atlanta is once again deriving a lot of value out of scrimming the academy team, it seems like. It also seems like that they allocated maybe a little bit too much resources into Defiant and didn't really take Paris as seriously as we now should have expected them to. But I will also say I'm really surprised by Baby Bay playing the entire time.
Totally.
I thought that they throw in an Edison or a Sharp here and there on the hit scan rolls. It also feels a little bit of overkill to have those 3 hit scan players. I like initially on the first map or even the second map when they're playing Torb, I'm like convinced that Baby Bay is like the Torb pick and that's fine. Like give a guy a pick, and if it actually becomes good, like we talked about before with NYXL, but then he stayed in the entire weekend, and I'm surprised by that. I'm Not even saying that he played badly or that he exposed himself mechanically or anything. Still look pretty okay. But I feel like okay is an attribute I wouldn't assign to either Sharp or Edison when they're on. Now, there are many reasons to assume that that couldn't be the case, and we got to give some credit to Atlanta Reign in terms of their coaching staff and their ability to evaluate if a player feels on or not. But yeah, it was surprising that even when it wasn't going that well, that we didn't see it, one of those two. So
Totally.
I hope those are incorporated more next time they play, and I'm not sure when that is. But yeah, it's I'm surprised just how underwhelming that was. I had them at the top 3 team, also by scrimbugs. People were thrilled to scrim them, honestly. Also surprised by their off-tank choices. Like, I felt like they played around the Rui sub quite well.
Sure.
Maybe
kind of innovative.
it's a map thing that they, or like an opponent thing where they thought that wouldn't go well against Paris Eternal. I'll have to like outright admit that I haven't given much thought in that area. If they should have run the Gator Pogpo comp more, would have to rethink the map once again. But yeah, it's not a team that you expect to lose that match, and I think they should have higher standards and also better fallback plans when a series drifts off.
And this,
like it very obviously did.
And this is one of the teams that has been touted as the most prepared team in Overwatch League. 12-man roster, evenly split. So they've got backups at every role. They've got their roly-poly practice facility following them domestically so that they've got places to practice at all times. They signed some of the most exciting young talent in Overwatch League. I would say, them and Philadelphia Fusion have had 2 of the most exciting off seasons as far as really elevating the team and players. And a lot of those promotions came internally from the Atlanta Academy. And so it's very surprising. Not surprising so much for the Defiant, where they obviously were, I would say, pretty dominant. I wouldn't say flawless, but it was exactly what I think we expected as far as overall results and scores. But just kind of really interesting to see. I did want to circle back on Pokpo and Gator for a second, because I also think that this is one of the surprises. I don't think we expected to see 2 main tanks for this team. But we did end up seeing Pokpo and Gator on the Reinhardt Orisa combo for unless there was some stall point that I missed and glossed over. I believe the entire match.
I think for the most part, I think it's a safe assumption to brand it the most.
Did this tank setup surprise you? I think we've kind of alluded to that it was relatively surprising.
Mm-hmm.
But B, do you think that this is the best tank look from Atlanta Reign?
I mean, from the 2 games that we've seen, it's tough to say that it isn't. I just think at first principles, like at a core, I think generally D.Va gives you multiple ways to play the game. She can play different modes, whereas Orisa, you're pigeonholed in your roster choices, because Gator probably doesn't have a strong D.Va, let's say. I don't know if I do think that that's probably required at this point. So you're committing to playing a main tank or double main tank throughout the entirety of the map. So you're already pigeonholed there, and then they can't switch. So if for instance, a flex tank has, some sort of ability to play a main tank, or some other main tanks have the abilities to play, what we consider normal flex tanks, that would be an interesting look to throw at people. But for the most part, that's kind of the big criticism of this double main tank style. It doesn't shock me that Atlanta was running it. I don't completely agree with it, but they have 2 very strong main tanks in Gator and Pokpo. We talked about how Orisa, these double main tank strategies are potent, at least at the start of the week, or at least the start of the season. It's kind of weird to see this now. But they kind of showed a different level. They kind of leveled up with it. They had a different evolution of it. They're getting a ton of value out of their halts, and that's kind of how they're playing the composition. Again, I think everybody goes immediately to the 4K fire strike off halt and amplification matrix.
Sure.
Something that nobody else has been
That
doing
was
consistently.
fun.
That was ridiculous.
That
That
was
was like,
cool.
oh, okay, this is different.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm like, okay, Atlanta, has some different looks with old tools, let's say. And then they put Hawk in, and
That's what I call Yiska, by the way.
the
What?
5
You're an
What?
old tool.
old tools.
Oh God.
Hawk, and I wonder if this stretches to some of the other rookies on the DPS and the reason why we saw Baby Bay. If I had to guess, I think this is his first game on stage, and he got a little scatterbrained. It didn't seem like he was doing much of anything to shut anybody down against Paris. It just felt like XCI was just running around, just popping shots, and you look and Baby Bay just is getting smothered the entire time.
Yeah, especially so like Baby Bay is largely credited, I would say, is one of like the most forward-facing, show many people in Overwatch League that we have right now, especially with like Jake gone. You've got Baby Bay. Dogman is probably another one where they're very. And did you see like his reaction after they 3-0'd the Defiant?
Yeah, he came out and did a little swaggy dance and
Swaggy dance. He's signing hats and throwing them off. I don't think he was signing hats.
And I think that's the big reason why he probably did see play is Edison and Sharp. They're new. They might not have that same kind of confidence.
For sure, yeah.
Baby Bay's vocal. He's confident. He's going to go out there and take those shots and flank. And even if he gets shut down, he's going to flank again. He's that Kobe style player who isn't just going to get in his own head if it doesn't work the first time. He knows that that's exactly what he should be doing, and he's going to keep doing it because he has that kind of confidence. I don't know if that's the exact reason, but that's kind of my leading theory on why we're not necessarily seeing these other players. He brings intangibles, he has those confidence, and he's not horrible.
No, we're going to talk about Paris, Atlanta in just a second. We do need to talk about Spitfire Outlaws. Joe, we almost oracled the shit out of this.
Close.
We're so close.
Wrong match, but I was close.
Yep. Well, we were close. Spitfire defeats the Outlaws 3-2. We called Houston to make some adjustments last week. More stability between Raucus and Repel. Let Linkser play the hit scan heavy maps. They did just that, fell 1 point short, and almost pulled a reverse sweep in Houston. But on Linkser specifically, Joe, how do you feel that he looked? I think the biggest criticism is that Linkser's hit scan. What people were kind of saying is like the reason why Linkser isn't playing is because hit scan is not actually good enough to outweigh the flexibility of
Blase. I could not disagree more. Now, I'm not saying that Linkser is some sort of top 5, prodigal hit scan god, but take Blase on McCree, eliminate the flexibility because they weren't being flexible. They had a wrong read on the meta, which was said, to be fair. Now they're shifting. Linkser comes in, is a good hit scan player. And that's exactly what I'll say. Good. Not great. Good. He's serviceable. He can come in clutch. Again, go back and watch Junkertown. He's the sole reason they won that map. Period.
Yep. Sure.
He can bring he kind of becomes a weapon for this team to use. Now this shifts Blase into becoming an actual weapon that they can use. I'm not saying Linkser is good. This makes a whole lot more sense than what they were doing before, and it shows in their performance. They made the adjustments. They're putting people in. They're stabilizing the roster. They have a better read on exactly what they want to do. They executed. Just not enough for London, but we'll get to the other match where they actually won.
Yeah.
Yiska, you feel the same?
I feel like I'm not sure if that's giving Linkser a little bit too much credit. I'm not sure about Junkertown if that was actually as hard of a carry performance as it.
I mean, it wasn't a hard carry performance. It was in the final moments in overtime. He finds 3 picks. They hold. They win the map. Right.
Sure.
Period. Muma's not doing anything. He's shattering with 2 people down. Linkser comes out of spawn, dinks 3 people. They win the map. Like
Yeah.
He wasn't doing extremely well all series long, but he has those moments that actually can shine. Blase just didn't. You gave him a number of team fights. So you can look on the stats page. I'm going to guess, again, I haven't looked, but I'm going to guess like at least 100 team fights. Not once did he kind of come out and have some sort of clutch moment or look like an actual weapon or a threat to the enemy team. He went on flanks against Florida, got stuffed by Chris. Didn't look good. Linkster, on the other hand, has at least some semblance, has some breath, has some life in the hit scan role. And you can shift Blase into something that he actually looks fantastic on.
Doomfist.
Almost flooded deadlifting.
Kid's cracked on Doom, dude.
It's disgusting. Where was this guy? Why were we doing this? Again, I think it's because they had a bad read on the meta. That's it. They're not a good team. Again, don't get me wrong. But now they're finding their footing.
Like,
huh?
What is not a good team to you? Bottom
messy,
5?
Uncoordinated.
Bottom.
Probably bottom 5 for right now. They haven't pierced bottom 5 yet. Like this is still it's a work in progress. 100%.
Improving.
But there's the yeast is alive. It's blooming. Like we're getting there.
Houston has a yeast infection. Okay.
Well, all right.
You have a way with words, Joe.
Hey, I didn't do it. You did. He did it.
Don't you ever point your finger at me. Well, let's talk about on the flip side though, and we've kind of alluded to it. So we kind of saw two different DPS duos. You saw Linkster and Hydration, and then you saw Blase and Dante. How did you feel about the other DPS duo in Blase and Dante playing? We saw some Doomfist, Tracer, Sombra type stuff. Joe, you're obviously a fan. Yiska, were you as a fan as Joe as this looked? Is this the improved Outlaws?
So Dante and Blase on Hackfist, if that actually is in the cards for map pool, they actually can punch up hardcore. Like real talk.
And it should be in
Blase.
map pools, right?
Blase.
Oh, he gonna say it.
He's a top 3 Doom.
he got the button.
He's a top 3 Doomfist in the league.
He is
Sinatra. He's Sinatra Huxell cracked, dude.
Oh.
He is nuts, man.
Top 3 though.
Did you see what he did to Agilities?
Yes,
dude?
I saw.
Agilities looked like a serviceable, decent Doomfist. And he 100%. Got his pants pulled down and his lunch money stolen, bro. Like,
yes, I agree.
That was nutty. Like, this man just. Oh my God, Chipsa though.
No, yeah, don't chat,
ignore
please.
Ignore chat.
Yeah, we have to continue the wall. Do not break the fourth barrier. Was it the fourth barrier?
I'm noticing the movement parcours that Dream has him on and competing probably. But yeah, that was actually nuts.
Top 3 though. I'm gonna fight you on that. He's good. That's more reasonable.
Okay,
top 3 though. Okay.
Huxell,
Sinatra.
Okay. Who else?
Let's do where's Doha at? Not on the team,
him, dog.
Below him?
Oh, okay.
Where's Sparkle? Where's Sparkle?
Yeah. Okay, he's not playing right now. Like that
doesn't matter.
It matters for
in the league.
When I say top 3, yeah.
Okay, top 3 playing
right now. Yeah.
Fine.
He's better than Yaki. Can you guys get out of here?
Yaki.
Rewatch that shit, dude. Like, come on. Like,
I wish we had something like a Bass where I could feed you to the chat or whatever the hell he calls it. Yaki.
Yeah. Hey.
Yaki.
Be nice to chat.
Libero had a better Doom than Yaki.
Be nice. Okay, so okay. Blase looks good. Yes. Dante, I think, excelled with Blase.
I think Dante looked good too. To be fair, on a hero that he's known for,
Dante
it's in his wheelhouse.
Good.
Yo, no, don't do it. Ignore,
dude. it's like the Gremlins, man. Like
They just come out. You just mention it one time. And
it's like the magic words, just like, don't say it twice, dude. And then there's this China set just go like, say leave, bro. Kenobi's here. Like he was actually in his bed, like during his second REM sleep, and he's just like lucid dreaming, like sleepwalking to the PC, just like, say leave, bro. Come on. I can't wait for these Pacific teams to start playing so we can actually get some spice going between each other.
I'm going to slowly mute Yiska. Slowly mute while he convulses on camera. Yeah. So it was really great to see that. I liked it, and this is something that Harsha and Dream, they did a post conference and just said, like, we decided to kind of not abandon the initial game plan, but adapt it and let our players play on the heroes that they're known for and that they're good at and they're comfortable on. And it showed a lot here. They let them and that's what happened. So there's one other player, though, that I think really stood out for me, and unfortunately this is for the all the wrong reasons. And that was Muma. Muma, I've backed you on this show, man. Like I said, like, I think, like, I believe
it's so frustrating watching this team.
There's I don't know if you guys were watching, like, while we were all watching, like, this sideshow stream, like, the best chant of that weekend was, if you sit in block Z and a shatter hits your knee, it's a Muma. It's so good. Like, oh, it's so true too.
It's like JMac with none of the positive side. It's JMac with no upside. It random pins, not shattering, swinging and playing aggressive, playing too pat. Like it's always, it feels like it's wrong.
Remember the serviceable main tank that was kind of good, and then season 3.
Yeah,
get him out.
So,
that's smell on it. Nah, we can't eat that anymore, dude.
I think it's about a week old. It's becoming sentient. It's so old.
This was for me. This was a match. Do you guys remember the Rock'em Sock'em robots?
Oh yeah. Like
you do the little thing. I feel like that was J-Mac and Muma the whole time. They just kind of like they're kind of like swinging you randomly, and just like J-Mac is the guy who had like 15 extra minutes playing the game before he started playing his friends. So it's just like beating it, but anybody else watching is just like, ooh, why are they?
They were 10-year-olds with Bop'em soccers, whatever the hell they were, and it was just each kid had one, and they were just going back and forth,
more fun,
just punching each other.
A pillow fight.
Roll them up, put your hand inside, get ready to have the time of your life. Yeah, I remember it too. Okay.
The time of your life.
Copyrighted.
Brought to you by Sock'em Boppers. Only $19.95. Order now. Jesus. Yeah. So that was.
Yep. That was that match.
That happened.
Children fighting in the sand pit.
Yep. Next match, Philadelphia Fusion 3-0, the Boston Uprising.
Talk about getting bullied on the schoolyard. Next.
Yep. All right. This next one, though, is one of the most surprising, I think, results we probably have to this point. Paris Eternal have solidified themselves as a real contender, taking Atlanta Reign in 4 maps, 3-1. So after a dominant performance against the Toronto Defiant, the Atlanta Lane looked really rough against the Eternal. I can even, like, that feels like an understatement. Is Paris really that serious of a team? Joe, I feel like I can answer for you and say yes.
Yeah.
You said that this is a top 5 team. Yiska, is Paris that serious of a team, or do you think that maybe A, Atlanta is just not that good of a team, or B, Atlanta hasn't quite figured out where they're at yet? I think because we've seen Philadelphia Fusion flounder a little bit for a team that is largely very good, and I think that you could put up there. They are also a team that has not looked flawless, especially against some lower tier teams. They have not looked that great against lower tier teams.
Yeah. It's hard to say. I just have to see more of them. That was a really weird weekend to me in terms of all my
Super weird.
expectations for the team. I think we need to give Hawk some more time to develop.
Totally.
I think he that is the better, that's the optimal option for them, especially if he could pick up an Orisa as well to have that additional flexibility. I really want to see some, even if even if Baby B is your starter, and that's an okay choice. Also because there are probably intangible reasons and he's not really a liability. But I'd still want to see on those ace maps. We've seen in contenders what Edison can do on a map like Ilios.
Sure.
So that's a play I want to see come out. And then just generally, I think the Atlanta system will flourish over the season.
Totally.
I think that's a season, a team that is very
long-term play, sure.
Yep.
Yes, very for the long term. I think they aren't even that bothered by splitting 1-1. If you have a roster that is stacked and a system this good, you're probably still feeling pretty chill about making playoffs.
Yep.
So
and again, I wouldn't be surprised to see Atlanta, move back up into the top 5 for me. This is a team that we all expect to be top 5. Just right now, they're not.
Yeah.
And
they probably will move back up though.
This was Paris's only match to prepare for too. So to be fair,
yes.
it was the Atlanta Reign, so it's not like they knew what to prepare for.
Yeah.
But at the very least, they weren't having to prepare for somebody else and trying to think about how are we going to approach the Reign. So
but this is a Paris roster that came on stage from reportedly being quite ill. This was a sick Paris.
In good and bad way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both definitions of the term.
So
but that's kind of what is the cherry on top. That's not the reason why I think they've exploded and, massive brained it. But that was their fundamentals. If you get ill and you have to go do something, you're probably doing the bare bones, exactly what you practiced, and even then it's probably not great. And that's what team showed up.
Yeah.
They look good.
How is that team not absolutely disgusting?
So, well, let's talk about that. I think one of those players would be Exy. And I think Exy has kind of, at the very least, he's written himself an invitation to be discussed about in one of the more elite hit scan players and we're talking about McCree specifically. Definitely to a point on the Widow, but largely McCree.
Yep.
Where do you think that Exy ranks right now in the Overwatch League for his carry DPS performance, is what we'll call it?
I think he's definitely within some of the better ones, but I think he's probably towards if we had to tier list them, I think he's probably towards the bottom middle or the bottom of the S tier. Somebody that can just kind of take over the game, that will just mechanic you, that can just brute force, but actually does operate well within this system. Who would I compare him to?
Is he better than Big QB in your mind?
Oh, 100%. Without a doubt.
Really?
Yeah,
he's way better.
Yes.
Way better.
No,
sorry,
I'm not sure about way
really,
better.
Is that a question?
Way better.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about way better, but he's better.
I look at Big QB. I look at when you can't give him an actual bodyguard. Tough to look good when you don't have Chris just up your butt. And just protecting you with Brigitte and stunning people and pushing them back and giving you resources and allowing you to flank constantly. It's pretty easy to look good. Blase might have even looked good if you could do that.
And then my second question, I suppose, is when you say S tier, is there an SS tier?
Is there a double S tier? Maybe.
Yeah.
Watch out with all the S's.
Oh. Yeah.
Joe made a joke.
Regardless.
And it was funny. We're going to let that one ride. Oh, that was great.
Yeah, I think there is a level above. I think there are people who are generational talents on specific heroes. But XCI is like good across the board, can play different heroes, will probably do well in hero pools and a number of heroes. And yeah, he's probably in the discussion for Rookie of the Year, but probably won't win.
Timeout. We need to come up with some consistency on this podcast. Are we saying it XE or XCI?
Let's have that.
Because the casters are saying XE.
XE.
Okay.
But I'm
XE like
saying XCI for no reason.
Okay. All right. We're there. All right. Fine. Yeah. We're there. Yeah.
So
XE it is.
XE.
I'm the Sado of this conversation.
No.
They're all in caps, so it's SADO. Is how it's pronounced.
It's an acronym.
Exactly. So I think if you look back at the Toronto match for Paris Eternal, I think Baby Bay didn't look like a bad pick. Like, it looked like, okay, there's some coaching metagaming going on here where they're like, oh yeah, he looks really good, and I can see why maybe this is like a meta for Baby Bay, because Baby Bay looked, I think, really solid against the Toronto Defiant, who took Philadelphia Fusion to 5 maps. Must be a pretty good team. This is a team that beat Paris Eternal.
No.
And
with an asterisk.
Yes. But we'll see how many people remember that asterisk.
Still is a win.
Yes. But he did not perform nearly to that level here at all. So
to be fair, Hanbin was, doing some Cleston maneuvers, if you catch my drift. Maybe, the Astroglide player of the match. Just saying.
Yeah. But y'all know these, the concept of being on in CSGO, right?
Flow state, stuff like that.
And like in CSGO, just to quickly explain, of course, we have different weapons and whatnot. And there are days where even your support player just has an on day and you give him the AWP instead, right? Like some teams do that because he's feeling it in that moment, right? So it's like, okay, so maybe, and I noticed a distinct difference between Baby mechanics on day 1 and day 2. He was hitting a lot of shots and actually crisp. Especially on McCree on day 1, not so much on day 2. If I see that and I have such a deep hit scan roster, of course, it's not like a modular thing where it's like, okay, I'm taking out my one hit scan player and I'm putting like like a new, what's that thing called? Like Mac Pro? Where it's all modular?
Yeah. I know.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah.
So, yeah, you're
but
changing
it's like
the batteries, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
it's another AA battery, dude.
It's like you have of course someone that also talks a lot. Maybe others don't talk as much. Edison certainly cannot be expected to do as much, and so you then still could theoretically say, okay, do I have an on player? Maybe in warm-ups or whatever. So maybe I can locate that, and then I maybe switch to him, because that has as long as FPS has been a thing, there have been days where even the most mediocre player just has absolutely like transcendental aim that one day, and he just claps the best in the world.
Yeah,
it just happens. And I think, and on heroes as aim intensive as like Widowmaker and McCree, they are theoretically on days, and then you have to do the calculation of like, okay, so here are my intangibles, here's my mechanics, how much value is everything going? Okay, Baby Bay is maybe not hitting as many shots. Is it worth to put in someone? Okay, Mint, that works. And then they go ahead with like a Edison, maybe just for a map,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I personally notice a distinct difference in mechanics, especially raw aim, day 1, day 2.
Sure. Well, yeah, I think yeah. So I think I just want to see Edison. This is another one of those things where it's like Libero. It's like Linkser. Like,
yeah.
I'm not saying unequivocally that this player is going to be better as far as your immediate result in this match, but I want to at least see it. Like, I need to at least see it,
sure.
and be.
And I think hero pools
wrong.
might facilitate that.
Man, I wish we could. I just want to talk about
I
hero
know.
pools right
I
now,
know.
but we can't. Wednesday, we're going to talk about
Wednesday.
hero pools. Chat, settle down. Order in the
Okay.
court. Dream says Baby Bay also had a really sick McCree, and his aggro style is good for this meta, which I think is probably true. And he calls, right? So,
Yep. Very well.
like, there's a lot going on there. I don't think that overall we're saying that like Baby Bay shouldn't have been in. Obviously, we'd like to see Edison, and I think there was a decent expectation to see some Edison, and we didn't.
Or Sharp.
Yep. Or Sharp. I'm not so surprised to not see Sharp, but that's just me. I don't know. That's just
Yeah. I don't remember Sharp having like an absolutely disgusting McCree, but I know he has a Widow. I do remember the Widow.
Sure, but they didn't play any like absolute must-have widow maps, did they?
I'll look.
Yeah, not sure.
Let us
Anyways,
see.
Paris Eternal, huge congratulations. They've obviously, Joe puts them in the top 5. I definitely put them up in those teams that, yes, they could be contenders. They could be, and obviously we haven't seen the Chinese teams or some of even the Korean teams. We haven't seen them, but they could be a team that could be a bubble playoff team, assume it without these other teams that we know nothing about in the mix. They're a good team. They're playing really well. They're playing well at all positions. Yiska, you said it before that what is, I think, most encouraging is how well the French counterparts have played with the Korean players. That was
in comparison to their last year's performance. Yeah.
If you told me 2 months ago, John, the Paris Eternal are going to be 3-1, and they're going to be pretty decisive in those 3-1, and they're going to look really great, and Joe's going to say they're going to be a top 5 team. Why do you think that is? You'd be like, oh, well, their Korean players are just playing out of their mind. Right, perfect meta. Korean players are playing out of your mind. XZ and Hanbin are, absolutely just, going off the walls, and that's why they're there. That's not exactly the case, right? They are playing great. The Korean parts are playing great, but I think Ben Best has played great. FD God has been, really solid.
Oh,
as well.
fantastic!
Oh yeah.
And
EU Lucio is just.
Yeah, Kid's nuts. Kid's actually cracked.
Yeah.
So, I think from that perspective, I think that's a little bit, it's not so much surprising as it is encouraging that the Atlanta Ray have put together a team that can work together in 2 different cultures. And I think that's great. And if they can do it now, hopefully they can continue to keep doing it.
That's the key. You come out on stage sick again. You can't ignore it, but it's not like a huge deal. But the fact that this team is as cohesive as it is this early negates a lot of my argument for how bad I thought this team was going to be. This team will only improve. They're getting a incredibly good rookie mid-season in Sparkle. They have a lot of depth at DPS. Again, XE can play a lot of the heroes that I expect him to be piloting, or what the next meta should be with the heroes removed. So can Soon, though. Nico, we'll see about him. But
by the way, I really hope they have Sparkle extend his hero pool a little bit, so the other projectile picks are on the level of his Doom and
I think
Farah.
We'll see. I don't know.
I don't know
it's
if
been a long time.
What
else do you want him to play though? What are you worried about?
I mean, ideally give him a hit scan pick as well. But
I don't know. They do a lot. No, I don't think. I think XE's fine. If you want that like mechanical like McCree Widow player, I mean, XE's fine.
It's just like for being ready for everything. You don't know about double hit scan metas. Like, do you really want to count on? Wow, I'm blanking on the name. Soon, yes. Oof.
Yeah.
Maybe you do. Maybe like these coaches can still drag a couple of percentages out of him. Then again, the role of serviceable in season 2 applies.
What double hit scan are you like concerned with? Because I think there are some that I would agree with, but I think they're kind of like weird. But I don't know if this is the right time for the conversation.
Probably not.
Probably not, right?
Yeah. True.
All right. Let's talk about the Spitfire Mayhem. The London Spitfire, I would say, upset the Florida Mayhem 3-2. I think going into this week, a lot of people had the Florida Mayhem beating the London Spitfire. And after a near loss to the Houston Outlaws on Saturday, London Spitfire bounced back with a map 5 win against the Florida Mayhem. The Mayhem are now 1-3 with a -4 map differential. I think we've kind of discussed what seems to be going on with Florida, but on the flip side, the London Spitfire find themselves at 3-2 with 3 5-map series. So
yeah,
they've been going deep. So where do you rate this London team right now that seems to be, I would say, can I say this? I think I can say the most inconsistent team in Overwatch right now. Is that fair?
Which team?
London Spitfire.
London.
Probably. I think I'd agree.
In overall results, like they tape, they're taking teams deep and then they're just getting crushed and they're looking great on a few points. And then, hold on, you're gonna make me pull it up.
I feel like they're playing.
So they ran New York
Paris
close.
Paris the 3-0 after taking a map off of NYXL.
Yeah. Which I believe was pre-Hunbin. Yeah.
To be fair, pre-Hunbin.
They got kind of clapped by pre-Hunbin Paris, which is not a good look.
Beating Washington, though, you could definitely make the argument that those almost were 2 very different series in that same series. Like It was literally like they were just getting clapped and then they start clapping.
Sure.
So I guess that's where it would come from. It's just like I would say just a very inconsistent results, even on like a per map basis.
Yeah, it's tough to kind of like give them like a tier. Like they keep bopping around a lot. Like they beat a good team or they draw a bad team really close, and then they edge out a good team, and then they lose to a team where they feel kind of all over the place, and I don't think that's something. So that'll improve.
That's what I say by don't chat. Just
Mm-hmm.
like settle down. If you don't agree with it, like hopefully you can see what I'm trying to say here. Okay. That's what I mean by just kind of like inconsistent, kind of an unknown quantity. I'm not really sure what we're going to see from them. Dream makes a great point. London are probably the gatekeepers in Overwatch League right now.
Great way to put it.
So
can't put away London, you got problems.
So is that where we all rate them? Kind of the gatekeepers, kind of on the cusp.
Like a C tier.
Yeah.
C plus, trying to break into being good. Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. So
it's a tough team.
It's a tough team. It's an interesting team. They've got a lot of great parts, exciting parts.
Got some bad parts too, though.
Yeah, that's true. They've definitely got some bad parts. So we'll see. But it was interesting to watch. I think the Florida Mayhem. I think we discussed it at the beginning of the show, is one of the most surprising teams as far as the results that we've seen. They've consistently underperformed, and we hope that they figure that out.
Bottom.
Joe is gonna flaunt that. I have to go back and look at the power rankings and be like, oh yeah, but what about this team and this team? Anyways,
don't bring up my power rank. I don't want to like. I mean nothing. And
again, I had like Paris at 19. Like how wrong?
No, I literally think it does. Like
they don't.
Just because a team has wild performances now doesn't necessarily mean
100%
that I didn't anticipate that to be happening, and it would have been a projection towards the end of the season, and then Hero Pool comes in and just completely invalidates the entire thing.
Yeah.
Like I just consider them to not be valid at all for me.
Yep.
Because
they were a fun piece of content to like discuss the teams in that current iteration.
Yes. Like if the meta
in that current iteration.
Yeah.
London's not a one-man army. Both their Dia players are sit. Yes, we should definitely talk about Bernard.
You know who doesn't get talked about at like almost at all? Sanguinar is actually not bad.
Not a bad.
Sanguinar is actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There are some pieces that are less than, but they make up for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the big thing to point through to is J-Mac, right? Like,
yeah,
and that's a really
He's the
difficult
gatekeeper.
piece.
He has the
J-Mac
keys.
is the gatekeeper. He is the player that, like, I don't know. It's tough to be a very good team right now with a main tank who is underperforming.
Yeah.
And I think that we've seen that with a few teams. So there's my
does get bailed out a lot.
Yeah, there's my off the cuff analysis with like actually not going back and like verifying what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying right now.
Just stick to it.
Let's talk about the last match of the week. That was the Florida Outlaw. Nope. The Toronto Defiant fall to the Houston Outlaws 3-1. Oh, that's the wrong one. They fall. The Defiant the Outlaws got their win in Houston. Almost walked away with 2-man. So close. So they get their first match win against Toronto, a team who, up until their performance against Atlanta, I think were largely regarded. I would almost say that Toronto was kind of seen as like the gatekeepers before week 4.
Yeah, I would say so. I think that was
different kind of gatekeepers, but yeah.
They're
like the preparation. Like if you can't beat us, then you probably don't have the strategic depth to beat other people. So we're gonna test you, and if you can beat us, great.
Yeah. So for Toronto, what does a loss to Houston mean for this team that also was clapped by the Atlanta Reign?
Well, it feels very defined once again. I feel like. Unfortunately, and I don't know what that even means because that team once again is like a completely different team from last year. Like from the players that remain, those aren't even playing that at all or frequently more than one map. So coaching staff completely different. Other than like Baroy, like just giving them the the jitters or whatever. Like it's just. I honestly think maybe we interpreted the signs a little bit
too early.
Overinterpreted them too early, yes. And it's also, of course, that like it's not like Defiant lost against clearly the worst team in the league in terms of score. It is Houston just playing way better than the score indicates. And then also like they just play their strategies better. Like Agility is going to get his cheeks clapped by Blase every time. Muma played a really solid Winston, for instance. Yeah. I think that strategy also probably maybe lends itself more towards their comp structure or whatever. Like without insight, it's maybe that's a natural progression of that team that would have happened anyway. But
I think so.
Yeah, it's just the case that it's not like I think if that match happens in week 1 and they had still these jitters, then it probably happens in another way. Like we just have very different performances, and based on that. I see that match. And also, I think both those teams play to their trend. I think that's the level we can expect from the Defiant in the future. And I think that's also the level we can expect from the Houston Outlaws in the future.
That's kind of how I was surprised by
the
this
trajectory, at least. Yeah.
I to your point, I do think Houston, if we eliminate hero pools and we continue, like, I think this is probably the natural progression of this team where it's like, okay, well, we need to bridge the gap to the next meta. Whatever patch comes in and changes, we need something to get us there. And this is the composition. It's been proven to work. We have the pieces to get it to work and pilot it correctly. I think that was always going to be the case with Houston. What was surprising is I kind of assumed Toronto was going to put up a better fight in that mirror, and B, that their main McCree kind of was going to be able to deal with it, try to kind of stop it. Because if you just kind of agree and you handshake on playing this double Doomfist style, you're giving Houston so much of a benefit. You're just allowing them to play what they already wanted to do. You're not trying to counter it. They've stopped being the off meta team, and now they're just mirroring them. and it's worse. That's what was really weird about Toronto, is that they kind of didn't feel prepared.
Yeah.
They almost didn't know that this was to be expected. I don't know. I got real weird vibes.
I also want to credit, of course, the seventh man coming in clutch for Houston. And judging by the, like little what's
the
it?
hand
like,
fighting, the signs.
No, the signs. Like that energy is only replicated by like in a zoo. What's it called? Like the part of the zoo where only the monkeys are.
I have no clue.
It's called Monkey House in German.
Oh, okay.
So in the Monkey House, like just bring one like that. If that energy
it?
just fuels your players, like they'd also hold up some of the signs that were shown there. God, what an obnoxious crowd! But if that fuels you, all power to you. Just take that chaotic energy, bottle it up, and just bring it to you to the next homestand you're traveling to. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Seventh
great.
man, apparently.
And I think a really important week, just in general. They didn't walk away with 2 wins, but Joe and I emphasized the importance of walking away with a win here.
Yes.
And not only just 1 win, but the loss. I mean, it was close, right?
Yeah,
like it was. It's not like, oh, we 0-3, and then we eked one out at the last second. It was like, no, they were hanging with both of these teams significantly. Doesn't really push them up the rankings too far just yet. If anything,
I think it saves them from being the bottom.
I think if anything, yeah. So it saves them from being, you think above
dead last.
You think above Boston?
I think now again, I said this yesterday. I think there is an argument to put them last. I don't agree with that. I can see where people would argue that. Again, they lost to Boston. Yada yada yada. I think with this new look Houston, with the momentum that they have, with the confidence that they're bringing in this game, you have to at least put them 19th. They're not last.
Fair.
They're not the bottom of the barrel, but again, I can't feasibly jump them up with one performance. It's just not. That's disingenuous.
Yeah. I think the big takeaway, if we're like talking about like relative power levels and stuff, is that Toronto is in free fall.
Yeah, not good. Not good. Not good.
Probably not, yeah.
We'll see what happens. Do they play next week? They do. They play Florida this weekend. Again, with the hero pools, which we'll get into.
That'll be an interesting one. You've got 2 teams.
I won't say anything.
Yeah. I think also for Outlaws, they're playing Eternal. It's going to be like that's the last match they'll have till April. So like it's that could be a good match. We'll see. It depends on, I think, if on the maps, of course. And then if like how that looks when you're running like if they're once again running Doom into something, I'd like to see that against a team that has proven cohesion.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it has the potential to be a good match. I'll also wager that your estimation of Paris being a top 5 team is going to be broken there.
See,
that's gonna
not necessarily by an Outlaws win, but
by being closer than.
Yes,
yeah, I could agree with that.
The Eternal struggling to get that win against Outlaws. Fair enough. Man, I don't know. It's gonna be really interesting. I want to see the betting odds on Paris versus Fusion after Paris have,
the odds makers are probably gonna get fired with hero pools because these are gonna be tough.
Yeah.
Let's make those margins big.
Yeah.
Let's double our Patreon, boys. Just kidding. We're not doing it. Don't worry. Big thank you to everybody who hung out. That's kind of our recap. Hopefully you've got some more context into all the matches. And if you missed them, hopefully it kind of helped you stay caught up and good to go. Yiska, we did get some new or just new patrons and up to patrons in general, yeah?
Sure. So new Patreons are, and okay, so first someone that upped their pledge. It's $1 more. So if you now stay with us for the next 320 years, that could pay for Joe's carpet cleaning. I don't know where I'm going with this. Never have me read these again, please. Coochie Kopi updated to $25. Oh, did I not? Ryan P.
Ryan P, thank you for upping your Patreon and believing in the show so much. You're like, I want to give you more money this month. Dude, I can't afford to. I had to cancel all my Twitch subs last month.
Really? Damn.
Yeah. Money's tight, bro. I get it.
Damn.
Dude. I appreciate the hell out of that upped pledge.
Yeah.
That's just. Thank you very much.
Then Coochie Kopi. I feel like he's been around for a long time.
He's been a long time patron.
Yeah. Yep. Also, like one of the, like when we were all small plebs and you were posting an article for 15 views.
Yeah.
That was one of the likes on Twitter.
Yep.
And then Josh D. Also,
brand new
chipping in.
Yeah.
And we're close to the goal now. I saw. 350.
Yeah. What's the goal?
I don't know. We might need to reevaluate it. I think there's something. I think that's something.
Wasn't the goal 2 shows? People live?
No, we already did 2 show or an extra show, but like we obviously do.
Wasn't it the advertisements thing?
No, that was 500.
Advertisement.
Removing advertisements.
Oh yeah, true.
Oh, gotcha.
Ow. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it says here. Pre and post show guaranteed. If we hit 350, we'll upload and pre and post show content to Patreon right away and to YouTube shortly after.
I don't want to do that, but I will. Sounds like a pain in someone's ass. But
nice.
Yeah, if that's what it is, and now we've set it on the air and I can't go back and change it. Thanks, guys. That's what it is. Neat. All right. Unless you guys vote and want it to be changed to something else. Please. Yeah. 5-star iTunes review from Swee_10. Thank you so much for leaving a wonderful 5-star iTunes review. If you're like, hey man, I'm like you, John. I can't I'm canceling my subs too, or I just can't afford to send money to content creators right now. But totally get it. I empathize and sympathize because I got a tax bill. I owe taxes this year. And I'm pissed about it.
Damn.
So, yeah.
IRS doing you in?
Dude, don't get me started. But you're like, but I'd love to support you in a different way. 5-star iTunes reviews are a great way to do that. It helps us jump up in the algorithm, and most other podcast outlets use the iTunes rating system to sort their podcasts. So by leaving us a 5-star iTunes review, you make us more discoverable on other websites as well. So that's a great way to support the show for free. And also just telling your friends and sending us your questions to tactical_crouch on Twitter or all that kind of stuff. So yeah. That's going to do it for us. You can find me everywhere at KickedTripod, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube. That's also where you can find the show. Twitch and YouTube at twitch.tv/KickedTripod and youtube.com/KickedTripod. So if you want to see the show live or you want to watch the show in video format, otherwise search for Tactical Crouch anywhere that you can. Yiska, shout outs for the week. Where can people find you? Go.
As always, I'm going to write some stuff for GG Recon. As always, I collected the straw polls of our watch parties. By the way, if you want to hang out, we're not try-harding here in our with companion teams or whatever. We're just really shooting shit, in Discord. And I'm bad at this. I gotta get on my Joe grind for that.
You gotta figure it out.
If you want to hang out there. Otherwise, I'll have the review so the recommendation. I want it to be kind of like a TV guide, for Overwatch games. We got 7 games. Which ones should you rewatch in order to get the storylines, see amazing plays, what is attractive about these games. And it's going to be much shorter this time. Not 4K words, I promise. And just like short and sweet descriptions of what's going on. And then also probably going to have some Valorant stuff this week.
Woo, Valorant. Joe, what about you, man? Shout outs for the week. Where can people find you?
You can find me on all the socials at Volamel. That's Volamel. Just posted my thoughts on what teams should be doing if they want to win a championship. My estimation is probably saving some of your star players, especially when they're ill. It's a long season. It's a marathon, not a race. That type of deal. Gotta give a lot of props to those deep rosters. And then some analysis on the Washington Justice. But this week you can look forward to an alternate Overwatch history. Maybe some analysis, YouTube content, hero pool discussion, and I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Sweet. All right, well, that's going to do it for us, chat. Thanks so much for hanging out. We're going to be back with a brief show, post-show, right after the music. Until then, we'll see you Wednesday for the Week 5 preview show.